One of the things I'm going to touch on a little bit, because part of MFCA, a lot of it is mental health, and what I realized doing this now as what we call a plaintiff's lawyer representing individuals suing their insurance companies is, and I was not prepared for it, law school does not prepare you for this, is that a lot of my job ends up being as a counselor, funny enough. It's not what I went to law school for. I'm not professionally trained to do it. But people who go through these life-altering events, and a lot of it is like they need counseling. They just need someone to talk to a lot of times because, God forbid this ever happens to you, but if and when it happens to you, because we live in Florida and hurricanes can hit at any time, we're in hurricane season right now, you realize how life-altering it is, and things that you take for granted, like living in your home, not having your kitchen destroyed. It really changes your life, and it's one of the things that, like I said, I wasn't prepared to do it. I'm not professionally trained to do it, but I end up having to do it because of this. So I just want to start off in thanking MFCA for having me here today, putting this event together. Well, it's a great conference, and I hope we have more and more events to it like this because our community really needs it. All right, there we are. Okay, I didn't make the first slide, so I wasn't sure where we were here. So let's go to the first slide. So the first thing is that I want to talk to you guys about is that it's a scenario, like I said, you don't really prepare for it. You don't think about it, but it happens very often. Again, we live in Florida. We're in a peninsula that sticks out into the Gulf, and we're in the middle of the pathway for hurricanes. And what you don't know is that what the media talks to us about is the storm itself, right? When there's a hurricane heading towards the Gulf, all the news channels, all the WhatsApp groups, they're all talking about this hurricane. What no one talks about, and you don't know until you go through it, is what you do after the storm passes, when your home is destroyed. And that's what I call the second storm. And that's the one that people don't really talk about enough. And that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. The difference between the first storm and the second is the first storm, we've been through it in 2024. We had two hurricanes here in the Tampa Bay area, Helene and Milton. And if you live through those, you know that the wind picks up and it's you're prepared the best you can if you decided not to evacuate. And it's scary living through it, but it's about 24 hours and it passes. If and when you have to file an insurance claim and you think it's just a transactional thing that like you're just gonna file the claim and they're gonna come out and they're gonna inspect and they're gonna pay you, and you think that's just how it happens. Unfortunately, that's not how it happens. And you end up having to call adjuster after adjuster, you're on hold and you hear the hold music and you realize that they're not going to pay you. Because the dirty little secret that people don't talk about is that insurance is a for-profit business and they make money by not paying you. That's exactly what they do. And so we think that we're buying insurance to insure us in our time of need, and when we need it, they're going to pay us. Unfortunately, that's not how it happens. So this is called the double disaster. And what happens is that insurers are flooded with claims, no pun intended. There are literally thousands of claims. Thank you for that. That was not my intention, but it was kind of funny. They literally have 10,000 claims overnight. And they're not really equipped to handle that many claims. And what we call catastrophe cowboys, or cat cowboys for short, they come from all over the states. They come from Kentucky and Texas and everywhere, even inside Florida. And they come and they adjust these losses. And sometimes they're doing 10 to 20 houses per day. And so they're not doing justice to you, whose home is destroyed. They don't know what your house looked like before, and they're just putting things together. So the first thing you'll get is an underpayment from the insurance company if it's not denied. So what ends up happening, what you live through the first 24 hours, you end up living through weeks and months because, believe it or not, they have 60 days. The insurance has 60 days to pay or deny a claim. So you're literally waiting not days, not weeks, but sometimes months to find out what they're going to pay you. Meanwhile, your house may be unlivable. You might be living in an apartment somewhere when you lived in a house. You don't know what's going on with your kid's school. There's so much to it that you're not prepared for, you're not equipped for, and you think that it's going to be a quick process, and it's really not. Sorry, I think I skipped a slide. But okay, so let's move on to this. Actually is a slide that I want to get to. So one of the things that obviously I don't have just Muslim clients, alhamdulillah, but I do have a lot of Muslim clients, and I had a lot after all the hurricanes that our community reaches out to me about. And I feel like our community, it's not that we're more vulnerable, but the claims hit us differently. One of the reasons is that in our community, we tend to not share our hardships financially, especially. You keep that internally. And so you find that people either don't have insurance, or if they have insurance, they're underinsured, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to share their struggles, so they keep that internal. So it's one of the things that I've noticed over the years of representing homeowners after a hurricane or a catastrophe. The second reason is, and it's not a bad reason, so I don't want to like paint it in that picture, but we have this notion in our deen of sabr, of patience, of calamities that afflict us, and we have to struggle through it. This is our test, and that is true, right? That happens, but your home insurance is not one of those tests, right? You paid for peace of mind. They sell you all these things, whether it's State Farm tells you they're a good neighbor or Allstate tells you you're in good hands. You paid for it. So this is not a situation where that you should be patient through it. You should call people that are qualified to help you through this process. And sabr doesn't mean just staying silent. That's not what sabr is about. The other reason is trust in institutions, especially lawyers. The lawyers, we tend to be the butt of all jokes. I hear all the time, are you a lawyer or are you a liar? Maybe a little bit of both, to be honest. You kind of have to be, right? SubhanAllah, even Sheikh Abdullah one time, I forget, شو هي الكلمة إنه ما بصير إنه like بالدين إنه like about that situation where you can't, walk a fine line إنه مرة كنت عم تحكي عنها مزك.
Okay, there's a level between lying and saying the truth, which is
التدليس. So there's this concept in Sharia. We were at a gathering and he was saying a tadlis, and how like you shouldn't have to like maybe like manipulate the truth sometimes, and like how it's how. Yeah, to hide some things and show some things, to use it to your advantage. And now you're kind of raising my hand. I was like, what about lawyers? Because that's kind of what we do, right? But again, we tend to be the butt of all jokes until someone needs a lawyer. SubhanAllah, I find that with a lot of Muslims, whether it's in, and I deal with mostly with car accidents, but definitely with homeowners insurance as well. I don't want to say have a distrust of lawyers, but a lot of times they've never even hired a lawyer in their life. And they're calling a lawyer for the first time for advice. And they're very hesitant and reluctant to hire a lawyer. And for good reason. There's a lot of distrust for a lot of us carry, that's my child, that's my son. We're children of the diaspora, and so we have this distrust of institutions, and part of that is lawyers, and then they think it's a halal, is a haram, and rightfully so. So I have to explain to them, no, this is your this is your right. You paid for this, and there's no issue with hiring a lawyer to go through that. So that's one of the things that I've noticed that specifically our community deals with. And then the last thing is the halal and haram aspect of financing. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with an insurance claim for 6 to 12 months, and you realize that I'm going to have to repair my house on my own, but you don't want to deal with insurance, so you can't take out a loan, and the insurance company is dragging you through the mud, and you have to file a lawsuit, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's just an added option that's not on the table anymore, an option that might be available for someone else who will simply take out a loan and pay interest and then get paid back by the insurance. They're willing to do that. But with our community, they're less likely to do so. So recognizing the playbook. I talked a lot about insurance. I talked about, you're in good neighbors, trust State Farm, you're in good hands, et cetera, et cetera. The playbook, and I'm not here to tell you that every insurance company acts in bad faith. There's a lot of insurance claims that I never see. There's a lot of insurance companies that I see very rarely. And so not everyone acts in bad faith. But I want you to notice the signs. And the MO of insurance companies is deny, delay, defend. Okay, those three things: deny, delay, defend. First, they will deny your claim. And included within denial is an underpayment. And we see that very, very often. They might tell you, hey, your claim is covered, but it's under the deductible. Or a portion of your claim is wear and tear. So we're going to deny that aspect of it. And then you challenge that, and they will delay you through the process, and all kinds of loopholes, and asking you for paperwork and this and that. And then if and when you have to hire a lawyer, they will defend it, and they will defend it in court, and they hire lawyers. They have teams of lawyers. Insurance companies have very, very deep pockets. And so that's the MO: deny, delay, defend. That first offer tends to be a lowball offer. And there is an old wives' tale, if you want to call it that the biggest insurance companies in America, State Farm and Allstate, about 30 years ago, hired McKinsey Consulting Group, or one of these consulting groups. I believe this because I see it far too often, so I don't think it's actually an old wives' tale. I think this is a reality. And McKinsey Consulting told them, you're bleeding out money because you're paying too much on claims. And the insurance company said, well, yeah, that's kind of our job. We exist to pay claims. And they said, no, but you're paying too much. What you should do is pay 30% of what you think you owe. 30% of what you think you owe. And for the rest of that 70%, fight them tooth and nail. And then you'll see like tiers of what the insurance company does. So the first time they'll deny, and then you'll try to dispute it and fight it. And then they'll offer $1,000, and they'll offer $5,000, and they'll offer $15,000. And what they're doing is they're weeding people out one by one by one. Because some people will take that initial offer. Some people will take the second offer. Meanwhile, they're already ahead because they underpaid you 30% on your claim. Right? And I believe this. I don't think it's an old wives' tale because I see it so often that number, that it's always right around 30%, that initial opening offer. The other thing that they tend to do is an endless loop of paperwork over and over again. Well, get us this. Well, get us that. Well, we need this. We need contractors' quotes. And then they'll start disputing the cause. Well, hold on one second. That looks like an old stain. That's rusted. When did this happen? And they'll find loopholes and technicalities to deny your claim. And one of the things that I call the carousel of adjusters, you're constantly going through adjusters, one after the other. And it's not an accident. It's by design. Because every time a new adjuster gets on the file, I say, well, hold on, I have to get caught up to speed. Another 2 weeks goes by. Then you don't hear from that adjuster. You follow up. You find out another adjuster is on the file now, and that adjuster needs 2 weeks. So they're just constantly pushing you down the road. And you don't realize that there are deadlines that you might be missing that they don't tell you about. And then the last trick that they use is urgency. They'll give you an offer and they'll make you sign for it, or say, hey, we're gonna cut you a check for $5,000, just sign here, and not explain to you that signature is a full and final release and you can't go after them for more money. Unfortunately, a lot of times I see that far too often. Someone calls me and then they'll even almost accidentally say, yeah, I signed on this. And I say, wait a second, you signed? What'd you sign? And they send it to me and I tell them, you're done. Like, your claim's over. You signed a release them from liability. So never sign anything without a lawyer reviewing it. So now we talk about your rights and what you should do to prepare. Well, we talked about the tactics, the toll it takes. All right, so your rights. What you should be doing before a claim is reviewing your policy. That's the number one thing that you should be doing. If you have insurance, I offer free consultations for people to review their policies. I'll tell you if it's a good policy, it's a bad policy. There are some things that your insurance agent is not explaining to you. I'll give you an example of someone that, and I knew right away because he called me and he said, my house flooded because his daughter's bathroom on the second floor leaked. Just a pipe burst and it leaked, it flooded the shatofe, if you guys know the lota, as they call it. It happens a lot, far too often, unfortunately. And it leaked the whole, it was actually on the second floor, leaked to the kitchen because it was right above the kitchen. And he called me and he said, the insurance only paid me $10,000. Now that number specifically didn't mean anything to him, but I knew right away when he said $10,000, there was a cap of $10,000 on his policy for water damage claims. And sure enough, when he sent me the paperwork, that's exactly what it was. I told him when we first talked, I said, I suspect there's a limited water damage endorsement. His agent never told him anything about that. And I'm giving you one example because there's a lot of technicalities the insurance company uses to their advantage. And the poor guy, he literally got $10,000. That wasn't even covered enough to cover the mitigation for the company that came out to dry the property. And he was never explained that you have a $10,000 cap. There's a lot of other caps on policies, a lot of other limitations. Your roof might not be covered 100%. There's a lot of things. So I offer a free policy review. That's the number one thing that you should be doing now, that to make sure you have the right policy in place that actually covers you. The second thing is to photograph the condition of your home before a loss. Okay, a lot of people, especially when it comes to inventory, after a catastrophic storm, I've seen storms that you will not believe where a home is simply gone. Like, it was there and the next day it's not, like literally wiped off the face of the earth. And if you have to think about every item of furniture, of clothing, of everything that's in your house right now and itemize it on a list, it's virtually impossible. Like, you can't write down everything that you own currently. And so one of the things I tell people is take a video. Just simply take a video walking through your house room by room by room. So that way you can go back and review and say, oh yeah, I had this lamp, I had this rug, I had this end table, I have this in my kitchen, I have this, appliances. Photographing the condition of your home is also important, because then when an insurance company tries to dispute it and say, well, that leak looks like that's been there before, you can say, no, I have a video, I took it this year, and look, here's a picture of it. And I love when my clients have these records that help me fight for them and dispute what the insurance company is trying to claim. And lastly, keeping your policy documents, keep record of everything you guys have. And now after the claim, God forbid, if a storm happens, documenting everything from day one. So taking pictures, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words. After the storm, where the tree fell on the house, where this fell, where the water was, all that is very, very important. The more that my clients keep record of everything, whether it's photographs, whether it's every phone call they have with the insurance, every email, the better and that I could do for them, advocating for them. Getting your own estimate. So you can hire your own contractor, you can hire a public adjuster or an attorney. Do not just take what the insurance is selling you as gospel and sign off on it. And speaking of signing, do not sign anything without getting a lawyer to review it. Know that you have the right to hire a public adjuster. Know that you have the right to an attorney. And know that you have the right to dispute what the insurance company is trying to pay you. And there's also other pathways that are not litigious, which are mediation or arbitration or appraisal that are pre-suit. So it doesn't necessarily have to take 18 months with lawyers. If your claim is denied or underpaid or stalling, have it reviewed. It costs nothing. Most attorneys and public adjusters, they do it for free. All right, protecting your well-being. Again, this is what I was saying. I'm not prepared and trained as a counselor, but I end up having to do it a lot. And unfortunately, I have so many cases where a married couple gets divorced after their claim, like so many times. Every single time there's a major hurricane in an area, and I have hundreds of claims. Without a doubt, there's a certain percentage of them that get divorced throughout that process. It just seems like it's a straw that breaks the camel's back many times, where going through this claim process is just so difficult. I've literally had clients living in campers outside their home in their driveway. I've had clients that their kitchen is literally destroyed because it just got flooded entirely and got gutted, and there's not enough money to rebuild it. So they can't cook and they can't clean, and just living in these conditions like that is very difficult and oftentimes ends in divorce. And so when you're faced with a situation like that, say it out loud, right? Name it. That's really important, to name that feeling that you're feeling. There is a recognized stress of dealing with insurance companies, believe it or not. And it is a load grade stress. It's not something it's not one day event. It's small. It's hundreds of small days, small bad days. And that doesn't mean you're handling anything wrong, that you're doing anything wrong. That's just the process itself. Set boundaries about retelling the story. One of the biggest reliefs that my clients feel after hiring me is they're like, thank God, this is a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I don't have to tell this story anymore. I don't have to relive this every single day with every single new adjuster, with every single person that comes out to inspect my house. And so that's one of the things that if you have someone in your family that can be that, just listen, can you help me with this? Take this off my hands. Or you hire a public adjuster or an attorney. Tawakkul, obviously we have that concept in our religion. Tawakkul and taking action, they live together. It's hand in hand. Natawakkal, but at the same time we take action. We don't just trust, aqilha wa tawakkal. And also reaching out, like I said. So aqilha wa tawakkal. So I think this is the last slide. This is the last slide right here. So I don't want to take too much time. Leave some time for a question and answer. Again, every storm is different. Every claim is different. Inshallah, if you guys ever have an issue, I offer free consultations. God forbid you don't need me, hopefully. So if you do, I'm here. We also handle car accident cases, so I deal with those a lot too. And thank you everyone for your time.